Noah's voice came through the phone flat and rehearsed like he was reading from a script someone else had written. You should be grateful we're handling this for you, Mom. Most people your age don't have family willing to take on this kind of responsibility. The word landed in my chest like a stone. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, watching steam rise from the kettle I'd forgotten was boiling. The word hung there between us, bitter and clinical, as if my 60 years, my mortgage paid in full, my retirement accounts built from 37 years of museum work, as if all of it had been erased and rewritten into a story where I was the incompetent elder and he was the benevolent son. Responsibility, I said carefully, keeping my voice steady. Noah, I just asked why the electric bill came addressed to Louisa. A sigh. That particular sigh adult children use when they've decided you're being difficult. Because we consolidated everything under one account. It's easier to manage that way. You don't need to worry about due dates or late fees anymore. I've never paid a bill late in my life. Mom, his tone shifted, softer but somehow more patronizing. We're just trying to help. You're not getting any younger and these things can get confusing. Confusing? Another word that felt like accusation disguised as concern. I was a museum curator for 37 years, I said quietly. I managed acquisition budgets, grant applications, insurance policies for collections worth millions. I think I can handle my electricity bill. Silence. Then Louisa's voice in the background, too quiet to make out the words, but the tone was clear. Let it go. She's just being stubborn. Noah came back on the line. Look, we need to run. Louisa has a work thing. We'll talk about this another time, okay? Noah, love you, Mom. Gotta go. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. The kettle screamed. I turned off the burner, poured water over a tea bag I didn't remember putting in the cup, and sat down at the kitchen table. My name is Betty Crawford. I'm 60 years old. I was married for 28 years to a man named Richard who died of pancreatic cancer when our son was 19. I raised Noah alone through college, through his first job, through the lean years when he was finding his footing. I gave him everything I had, not because I expected gratitude, but because that's what mothers do. But somewhere along the way, gratitude became the currency he used to purchase control. It started small, as these things always do. 2 years ago, when I mentioned I was thinking of updating my will, Noah suggested I add him as a co-signer on my checking account, just in case something happens, he'd said, so I can pay your bills if you're in the hospital or something. It made sense. I was 58 then, healthy but not invincible. Richard had died suddenly, one day complaining of back pain. 6 weeks later, gone. The idea of Noah being able to handle logistics if I couldn't seemed practical, even loving. So I signed the forms he'd brought to Sunday dinner. He'd smiled, hugged me, said, "This is just to protect you, Mom." Then came the credit cards. "You should get rid of these high-interest ones," Noah had said. Sorting through my mail one afternoon. "I can add you to our account as an authorized user. Better rewards, lower rate." I'd agreed. Why wouldn't I? He worked in finance. He understood these things better than I did. Then the insurance, the phone plan, the streaming services. One by one, my accounts migrated into their names, each time with the same explanation. Easier to manage, better rates. You don't need to worry about it. I'd wanted to believe that. I'd wanted to believe my son was taking care of me the way I'd once taken care of him. But standing in my kitchen, holding that lukewarm tea, I realized something I'd been avoiding for months. I didn't recognize my own financial life anymore. My name had been quietly edited out, replaced with theirs, and I'd been too trusting or too tired to note. I walked to the study, the room that used to be Richard's office. I still kept his old filing cabinet, the one with the squeaky bottom drawer. Inside were folders I hadn't touched in months. Utilities, credit cards, bank statement. I pulled them out and spread them on the desk. Electric bill, Louisa Chen, primary account holder. Water, Noah Crawford. Internet, Noah Crawford. Credit card, Noah Crawford. Authorized user, Betty Crawford. Authorized user? Not primary, not equal. Author. I opened my laptop, hands shaking slightly, logged into my checking account, the one Noah had been added to, just in case. Recent transactions scrolled down the screen. Grocery store, gas station, utility payments, all normal. But then I saw them, transfers, regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize. 200 here, 500 there, sometimes 1,000. Weekly, like clockwork. My chest tightened. I clicked on the account details. Primary account holder, Noah Crawford. Secondary, Louisa Chen. My name appeared nowhere. I sat back, breathing too fast. The transfers weren't theft. Exactly. They were going to my bills, the ones now in Noah's name. But the way it was structured meant I had no control. I was paying for things I no longer owned on paper. My phone buzzed. A text from Noah. Sorry if I was short earlier. Stressful day. Love you. I stared at the words. Wondered when love had started feeling like something conditional, something I had to earn by being quiet and grateful and manageable. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out a notebook. One of the blank ones Richard used to buy me every Christmas because I liked writing by hand. I opened to the first page and wrote 3 words at the top. Take it back. Underneath, I started a list. Electric bill? Transferred when? Checking account? Who has access? Credit cards? Am I liable? House deed? Still in my name? That last one made my blood run cold. I hadn't checked. Hadn't thought to check. I spent the next hour digging through files, opening mail I'd ignored because Noah said he was handling it. With each page, the picture became clearer and uglier. My retirement account, Noah listed as primary beneficiary. I'd done that, but also as co-owner with rights of survivorship. I hadn't agreed to that. My car insurance policy in Noah's name, me listed as a driver. My mortgage still in my name, thank God, but auto pay coming from the joint account, which meant if Noah froze it, I'd default. By the time I finished, the sun was setting, the tea had gone cold, and I felt something I hadn't felt since Richard's diagnosis, the slow creeping realization that my life was no longer fully mine. But unlike with Richard's illness, this was something I could fight. I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew would understand. Helen Chen speaking. Helen, it's Betty. I need help. Helen and I had worked together for 15 years at the Harrison Museum of Natural History. She'd been the director while I ran acquisition. When I'd retired 3 years ago, she'd handed me a card with her personal number and said, if you ever need anything, legal trouble, financial trouble, existential crisis, call me. I'd laughed then. Now, hearing her calm, professional voice, I felt tears prick my eyes. Betty? What's wrong? My son, I said. I think he's taken everything. Helen met me the next morning at a coffee shop equidistant between our houses, the kind of anonymous chain where no one would recognize us or care what we discussed. She arrived with a leather portfolio and the same sharp focus she'd brought to board meetings. Tell me everything, she said, ordering us both black coffee without asking. Helen had always been efficient. I laid out the documents, bills, bank statements, transfer records. She went through them methodically, making notes on a yellow legal pad, asking questions that made me feel simultaneously cared for and interrogated. When did you sign the co-ownership agreement on the retirement account? I don't think I did. You don't think? Or you didn't? I signed something 2 years ago when Noah said he needed to be able to access accounts if I was hospitalized. But it was just supposed to be temporary access, not ownership. Helen's jaw tightened. Do you have copies? No. He took the forms with him, said he'd file them and send me copies, but I trailed off, realizing how that sounded. She set down her pen. Betty, how much do you think is in your accounts right now? Ballpark. I did the math in my head. Maybe 40,000 checking, another 180 in retirement savings, 30 in the emergency fund. Check. I pulled out my phone, logged into the banking app. My fingers felt clumsy. Checking 42 and then 47.38. Retirement. Unable to access, please contact administrator. Emergency. The coffee shop tilted. Helen's hand shot across the table, steadying my phone before I dropped it. Breathe, she said. Just breathe. Where did it go? Transfers, probably. We need to get transaction histories, and we need to do it before Noah realizes you're looking. She pulled out her phone. I'm texting you a contact. Vivian Reyes. She's a financial attorney I used when my ex-husband tried something similar. Your ex-husband did almost exactly this. Thought he could control me by controlling the money. Helen's smile was sharp. He learned otherwise, so will Noah. The weight in my chest loosened slightly. What do I do? First, you go to the bank, in person. Request full transaction histories for the last 2 years on every account, with your name on it. They have to provide them. It's legally your information. Take everything to Vivi. She'll file for an emergency freeze on transfers and start the process of reversing unauthorized changes. Noah will know I'm looking. Yes, he will. He'll be angry. Helen leaned forward. Betty, he's been banking on you being too scared or too polite to check. That ends today. You taught me something when we worked together. Do you remember? I shook my head. You said, the artifacts don't belong to us. We're just stewards. The moment we forget that, we become thieves. She tapped the documents. This is your life, your money, your security. Noah isn't the steward. You are. He's the thief. The word landed hard. Thief! My son. I raised him better than this, I whispered. You raised him, Louisa refined him. Helen's expression softened. I met her once, remember? At your retirement party. She struck me as someone who measures everyone by what they can provide. Noah married that, and it changed him. I remembered that party. Louisa had spent the entire evening on her phone, occasionally looking up to smile when someone important approached. She'd left early, claiming a work emergency. Noah had apologized, said she was under a lot of pressure, and made excuses for her, for both of them, because that's what mothers do. We find explanations for our children's cruelty until the explanations become more exhausting than the truth. What if I lose him over this? I asked. Helen's hand covered mine. What if you lose yourself by doing nothing? The bank was busy, lunch hour rush, people depositing checks, and arguing about overdraft fees. I waited in the customer service line, clutching a list Helen had helped me write. Accounts, dates, transfer details. When my turn came, the representative, a young man with careful eyes and a name tag reading Marcus, smiled professionally. How can I help you today? I need complete transaction histories for my accounts. The last 2 years. Of course, I'll need your ID and account numbers. I slid them across the counter. He typed, frowned, typed again. Miss Crawford, I'm seeing here that this checking account is jointly held with Noah Crawford, who's listed as primary. For security purposes, any detailed transaction requests need to come from the primary account holder. My throat tightened. It's my account. My social security number opened it 30 years ago. I understand, but according to our records, the primary designation was changed. He squinted at the screen. 23 months ago. Did you authorize that change? No. His expression shifted. Recognition, concern, something he'd probably been trained to spot. Mrs. Crawford, if you believe there's been unauthorized access or changes to your accounts, I need to connect you with our fraud department. It's not fraud. It's my son. Ma'am, with respect, if changes were made without your consent, the relationship doesn't change the legal definition. The word fraud echoed. My son. Fraud. Marcus made a call. Within 10 minutes, I was sitting in a small office with a fraud investigator named Teresa, who listened with the kind of careful attention that felt both comforting and terrifying. I'm going to ask you some difficult questions, Teresa said, and I need you to answer honestly. Has Noah ever threatened you? Made you feel unsafe? No, never. Has he restricted your access to resources? Prevented you from going places or seeing people? Not physically, but he's made comments about my age, my ability to manage things. She typed notes. Has he convinced you to sign documents by saying they were for your protection? Yes. Did you read those documents fully before signing? I hesitated. No, I trusted him. Teresa's eyes were kind but firm. Mrs. Crawford, what you're describing is financial elder abuse. It's more common than people think, and it's often perpetrated by family members. The good news is you're here now. The bad news is this process is going to be hard. I don't want to press charges. I just want my accounts back. I understand, but freezing the accounts and reversing changes requires documentation. We'll need to file an internal investigation report. Noah will be notified. If he's acting in good faith, he'll cooperate. If not, she left the implication hanging. I signed forms, authorized the investigation, gave permission for everything to be frozen while they reviewed transfer records. As I left the bank, my phone buzzed. Noah, hey, did you try to access the checking account? Got a notification? Everything okay? My hands shook as I typed back, everything's fine, just checking a balance. His response was immediate. Use the app next time. Easier than calling the bank. He was monitoring me, or rather monitoring the accounts that used to be mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the retirement savings, $180,000 I'd built from 37 years of careful contributions. Where had it gone? To what account? For what purpose? At 2 a.m., I got up and opened my laptop, searched for Vivian Reyes, the attorney Helen had recommended. Her website was professional, sparse, financial elder abuse defense, asset recovery, estate protection. I filled out the contact form, hands shaking. By 9 a.m. the next morning, she called. Vivian Reyes's office was in a renovated brownstone downtown, the kind of place that felt both professional and personal. She met me in the lobby herself, early 50s, sharp suit, handshake that conveyed competence. Helen speaks highly of you, she said, leading me upstairs. She also warned me you'd try to minimize what's happening. So let's establish ground rules. You don't apologize for being thorough. You don't make excuses for Noah. And you don't leave here without a clear action plan. Agreed? Agreed. Her office was lined with law books and framed degrees. She gestured to a chair across from her desk and pulled out a recorder. I'm recording this for documentation purposes. Tell me everything, start to finish. Don't leave anything out, even if it seems small. I talked for an hour. She took notes, asked clarifying questions, occasionally stopped me to have me explain something in more detail. When I finished, she said, okay, here's what we're dealing with. Financial exploitation through coercion and potential fraud. The good news, you haven't signed anything giving him power of attorney, so his access is limited to accounts he was added to. The bad news, being added to those accounts may have given him enough leverage to make changes you didn't explicitly authorize. Can we get the money back? Most of it, yes. But we need to move carefully. She opened a file on her computer. First, we freeze everything. The bank's already started that process. Second, we establish new accounts in your maiden name only. Nothing he has access to. Third, we redirect all income streams. Social Security, pension, any investments to the new accounts. Won't he notice? He'll notice when his access stops working. That's when things get difficult. She looked at me directly. Betty, when the money stops flowing through accounts he controls, Noah will react. People don't give up financial control easily, especially when they've convinced themselves they're entitled to it. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the phone call, the word grateful, the years of small erasures. Yes, good, because the next step is confrontation. Not emotional, legal. I'll draft a letter explaining that you're reclaiming your accounts, that any transfers made without explicit written consent are being reversed, and that continued interference will result in legal action. You're talking about suing my son? I'm talking about protecting you from financial abuse. The relationship doesn't change the law. She softened slightly. Look, most of these cases don't go to court. Once people realize they're being documented, they back off. Noah might apologize, might claim he was trying to help, but either way, you get your life back. That afternoon, I opened new accounts at a different bank, one Noah had never used. I transferred what little remained in my individual savings account, set up direct deposit for my pension, changed passwords on every online account I could access. It felt like building a fortress from paper clips and tape, but it was something. Helen came over that evening with takeout and wine. We sat in my kitchen, documents spread across the table like a war map. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I keep thinking about when he was 8, I said. "He fell off his bike and broke his arm. I took him to the ER, waited 4 hours, held him while they set the bone. He looked up at me afterward and said, 'Thanks for not leaving.' Like he'd been worried I might." Betty, I never left. Not once. Through everything. Richard's death, Noah's college struggles, his job losses. I was there. And now he's thanking me by stealing my retirement. Ellen poured more wine. He's not the 8-year-old with the broken arm anymore. He's a 42-year-old man who made choices. Bad ones. Louisa is not an excuse. She might have influenced him. But he chose to go along. He chose to add his name to your accounts. He chose to transfer money. He chose to tell you to be grateful. She raised her glass. "So here's to choosing yourself for one." We drank. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than shame or fear. I felt angry. The letter from Vivian arrived 3 days later, certified mail. I wasn't there when Noah signed for it, but I imagine his face. Confusion, then recognition, then fury. He called within an hour. "What the hell is this?" His voice was tight, controlled. "Some lawyer saying I've been financially abusing you? Are you kidding me? Noah, I've been helping you, keeping track of bills, making sure nothing falls through the cracks. And this is how you thank me?" There it was again. Thank. As if my gratitude was payment owed. "You took my retirement savings," I said quietly. "I moved it to a better account. Higher interest rate. In your name. For safety." "Mom, you're 60 years old. What if something happens to you? What if you forget passwords or lose track of accounts?" "I haven't forgotten anything. I just checked my retirement account has been emptied." Silence. "Then that's temporary. We were consolidating without asking me. Because you would have said no, because you're stubborn and you don't trust anyone to help you." "I trusted you. That was the problem." He exhaled sharply. "Louisa said you'd do this. She said you'd turn on us the second we tried to actually help." Of course, Louisa had said that. Of course, she'd framed my resistance as betrayal rather than self-defense. "Noah, I'm not turning on anyone. I'm taking back my own accounts. If you were really trying to help, you'll have no problem returning what you took. I didn't take anything. It's all accounted for. Bills, utilities, your car insurance. Do you think that stuff is free? I was paying those bills long before you got involved. Barely. I've seen your finances, Mom. You were hemorrhaging money on stupid stuff. Donations to museums, charity contributions, my money, my choices. Not when you can't afford them. I can afford them. What I can't afford is supporting your lifestyle while you tell me I should be grateful." The line went silent, then cold. "You're making a huge mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." He hung up. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, shaking. Not from fear, from something cleaner. Relief, maybe. Or clarity. Whatever we'd had, that mother-son bond I'd believed was unbreakable, had been broken. Not by me, by him. Slowly, over years of small thefts, disguised as care. The real question now was what came next. The freeze on the accounts took effect within 48 hours. Vivian called to confirm no more transfers could be made without court intervention. The bank's fraud investigation had found irregularities, their polite term for unauthorized changes, and was reversing several transactions. They're crediting back approximately $100,000 to your accounts, Vivian said. The rest is in accounts solely in Noah's name, which will need subpoenas to access. But this is a start. Still missing over $50,000. Still missing over $50,000. But at least I could breathe again. What about the retirement account? That's trickier. Since you did technically add him as beneficiary, he had legal standing to make changes. But if we can prove coercion, that he misrepresented what you were signing, we can challenge it. Do I have to testify? Not unless this goes to trial. which I don't think it will. She paused. Noah's attorney called this morning. My stomach dropped. He has an attorney? Of course he does. They're claiming this is a misunderstanding, that Noah was acting in good faith as your financial caretaker. I never appointed him as my caretaker. I know. That's our position. But Betty, they're going to paint you as confused, possibly senile. They'll bring up your age, maybe suggest you're not competent to manage your own affairs. The thought made me sick. Can they do that? They can try, which is why we're going to be very, very prepared. Over the next week, I became a student of my own life. I gathered documents proving my competence, performance reviews from the museum, letters of recommendation, records showing I'd managed complex budgets and negotiations. Helen helped me draft a timeline of every interaction with Noah, every coercion disguised as help. I also changed my will. The old one had left everything to Noah. The new one established a trust, with Helen as executor directing funds to the museum's educational programs. Noah would receive a modest inheritance, enough to be fair, not enough to reward theft. Are you sure? Helen asked as I signed. No, but I'm sure I can't reward what he's done. The hardest part was the silence. Noah didn't call, didn't text. It was as if I'd ceased to exist the moment I stopped being controllable. Louisa, though, she called. Betty, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Her voice was honey and poison. Noah's devastated. He was just trying to help. By taking my retirement savings, he moved it to a better account. For you. And now you're accusing him of theft? Do you have any idea how this looks? How it looks to whom? To everyone. His colleagues, our friends. You're making him seem like some kind of criminal. Louis, I'm not making him seem like anything. I'm asking for my money back. It's in a secure account. You'll get it when what? When I'm too old to use it. When I'm dead. Silence. Then, softer. You really think we'd steal from you? I think you already did. She hung up, and I felt something I hadn't expected: pity. Not for myself, but for Noah. He'd married someone who saw people as resources, and I'd spent 2 years pretending not to notice. The mediation happened in Vivian's office. Noah and his attorney on one side of the table, Vivian and me on the other. Noah wouldn't look at me. His attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Carr, opened with a prepared statement. Our client acted in good faith, attempting to assist his mother with increasingly complex financial management. Any transfers were for legitimate expenses or investment opportunities intended to benefit Mrs. Crawford. Vivian slid a document across the table. This is a record of transfers totaling $53,000 to accounts bearing only Noah Crawford's name. Can you explain how that benefits Mrs. Crawford? Care glanced at Noah, who muttered something. My client indicates those were loans to be repaid. With what documentation? Vivian didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. Where are the loan agreements? The repayment schedules? Any written confirmation that Mrs. Crawford authorized these transfers? Noah finally spoke. She verbally approved. Did she? Vivian looked at me. No. Mom, Noah's voice cracked. We talked about it. I told you I needed help with. You told me you were managing my bills. You didn't tell me you were transferring my money into accounts I couldn't access. Now raised a hand. Let's focus on resolution. My client is willing to return the disputed funds, provided Mrs. Crawford acknowledges this was a misunderstanding and withdraws any fraud allegations. Vivian smiled. Your client will return all funds, including interest. Mrs. Crawford will acknowledge that mistakes were made, but the fraud investigation stands on record. Non-negotiable. That's unacceptable. Then we'll see you in court. The mediation ended without resolution. But as we left, Vivian squeezed my shoulder. He'll cave. Give it 24 hours. She was right. The next day, Carr called with a settlement offer. Full restitution, interest included, no admission of guilt from either side. The fraud investigation would remain on record, but sealed unless future issues arose. Take it, Vivian advised. You get your money, he learns a lesson, and you both move on. I signed the agreement. Within a week, $53,000 appeared in my new account. the one Noah had never touched. But resolution didn't feel like victory. It felt like amputation, necessary, painful, permanent. Helen took me to lunch to celebrate. You did it, she said, raising her glass. Did I? I got my money back. I lost my son. You lost the version of him that thought he owned you. She set down her glass. Maybe the real version will come back. Maybe not. But either way, you're free. Free. It was a strange word for what I felt, which was mostly tired. 3 months later, the house felt different. Quieter, but not lonely. Just mine again. I'd redecorated Richard's office, turning it into a space that felt less like a shrine and more like a room for living. New desk, plants on the windowsill, photos from my museum days on the wall. Helen visited weekly. We'd started a book club, just the two of us, reading novels about women who'd survived worse and emerged whole. Noah sent an email. Just one. Mom, I'm sorry. I thought I was helping. I see now that I wasn't. I don't know how to fix this. I didn't respond immediately. Sat with it for days, letting the words settle. Finally, I wrote back, Noah, I know you thought you were helping. But help without consent is control. I need time. Maybe someday we can rebuild something, but it won't be the same. That version of us where I was someone you managed is over. He didn't reply, and I didn't push. The museum called. They were planning an exhibit on women collectors in the 19th century, something I'd proposed years ago, but never had funding for. Would I consider coming back as a consultant? I said yes. The work felt good, familiar, proof that I still had value beyond what I could provide to my son, beyond being someone's mother or someone's problem. One afternoon, sorting through acquisition records, I found a note I'd written to myself decades ago, tucked into a file about a controversial purchase. The value of something isn't determined by what someone else is willing to pay. It's determined by what you're willing to fight for. I'd been writing about a sculpture, but reading it now, I realized I'd been writing about everything. 6 months after the mediation, I ran into Louisa at the grocery store. She looked smaller somehow, tired, saw me and hesitated like she might turn and run. But she didn't. She walked over. Betty. Hi, Louisa. She swallowed. I wanted to say I'm sorry for all of it. I waited. I pushed Noah. I don't know what I thought, that we deserved it, that you weren't going to need it. That's not an excuse, but it's the truth. Where's Noah now? We separated 2 months ago. She laughed bitterly. Turns out when you build a relationship on who can control whom, it falls apart pretty fast. I should have felt vindicated. Didn't. Just felt sad. I hope you figure it out, I said. Meant it? She nodded, tears in her eyes, and walked away. 1 year after the phone call that started everything, I was sitting in my kitchen, new tea kettle whistling, sun streaming through windows I'd had cleaned, when my phone rang. Noah. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom? His voice sounded younger, uncertain. Hi, Noah. Can we talk? Not about the money, just talk. I looked around my kitchen, at the life I'd rebuilt, at the space that was mine again. Not yet, I said gently, but maybe someday. Okay, a pause. I love you. I know, I said. I love you too. We hung up, and I realized something. Love doesn't require surrender. It doesn't require making yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger. Love can exist alongside boundaries, alongside refusal, alongside the word no. The tea kettle sang. I poured water over Earl Grey, added 1 sugar, sat by the window. My phone buzzed. Helen, book club tonight. I found one about a woman who stole her life back. I smiled, texted back. Perfect. See you at 7. Outside, the neighbor's kids were playing. Someone was mowing the lawn. The world continued, indifferent to my small reclamation. But I wasn't indifferent. I was awake, present. Mine again. People ask if I regret confronting Noah, if I wish I'd handled it differently, kept quiet, preserved the relationship at any cost. The answer is no. I regret trusting without verifying. I regret confusing silence with peace, compliance with love. I regret teaching my son that my value was in what I could provide rather than in who I was. But I don't regret taking back what was mine. The museum exhibit opened last month, Women Who Built Collections, Hidden Histories. My name was on the curator plaque. Helen came to the opening. So did former colleagues, museum board members, people who remembered me as someone competent and capable. Noah didn't come, but he sent flowers with a note. Proud of you. Working on being better. I kept the flowers, composted the note, not out of cruelty, just practicality. Words only matter when they're backed by change. These days, I volunteer at a senior center teaching financial literacy to women my age. The classes fill up fast. Turns out I'm not the only one who's had a child help their way into control. Last week, a woman asked, "How do you trust your kids again after something like this?" I thought about it. You don't, not blindly. Trust isn't a gift you give once and forget about. It's something you build day by day through actions that match words. And if someone breaks it badly enough, it's okay to say, "I love you, but I can't give you that power again." She nodded, eyes wet. "So you never forgave your son?" I didn't say that. Forgiveness and trust are different things. I forgave Noah for being human, for making terrible choices, for letting someone reshape him into a person I didn't recognize. But forgiveness doesn't mean handing him the keys to my life again. The woman smiled. I think I understand. I hope she did. Tonight, I'm sitting in Richard's office, my office now, looking at the budget for next year's museum projects. I'm comfortable, not wealthy, but comfortable. My accounts are mine, my bills have my name, my future belongs to me. The phone sits beside me, silent. Someday, maybe Noah and I will rebuild something new. Not the old relationship where I was the giver and he was the taker. Something more balanced, more honest. Or maybe we won't. Maybe some fractures don't heal. Either way, I'm okay. Because here's what I learned. You can love someone and still say no. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself. You can lose a relationship and still gain your life back. The word grateful, the one Noah used that day on the phone, doesn't haunt me anymore. Because I am grateful, just not to him. I'm grateful to Helen, who saw the truth when I was still making excuses. To Vivian, who fought for me when I didn't yet know how to fight for myself. To every woman who sat in my financial literacy class and said, I thought I was the only one. And I'm grateful to myself for waking up, for asking questions, for refusing to disappear just because it was easier for someone else. My name is Betty Crawford. I'm 61 years old. I was a museum curator for 37 years. I'm a widow, a mother, a survivor of financial abuse, disguised as love. And this is my story, not of revenge, but of reclamation. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fight. It's refuse to keep losing.